Don't look at the TV.
Boom. And we are live with another episode of the Brown Water Banter Podcast. My name is Jared Seymour.
My name is Joey Cates.
That's right. It is Joey Cates. And we got another great episode for you this evening, man, with the DMR. We're going to be talking about boating safety and the upcoming shrimp season. But before we do that, we're going to thank the people that keep the lights on for us over here at the Brown Water Studio right out of the gate. I'm sure you've heard the name before. Dr. Robbie Williams over at Southern Magnolia Smiles, man. When you're ready to book that appointment, go check them out. You can look them up on Facebook, also on Instagram at Southern Magnolia Smiles. 2024 is the year to smile more. So go ahead and book that consultation with them at 228-215-1202 and tell them that Brown Water sent you. If you find yourself in need for legal representation for any reason, Taylor & Cox Law Firm has been practicing law on the Mississippi Gulf Coast for over 30 years. Our buddy Tyler right here, they specialize in felonies, misdemeanors, DUI, family law, divorce, child custody, you name it. If you need someone that's going to fight tooth and nail for you, Taylor & Cox Law Firm is the one to go to. Give them a shout at 228-696-0111. We got Sea to Swamp. They have two locations now, one in Goshen and one in Gulfport. They have all your tackle and apparel needs covered. If you want to look them up on Facebook, just type in Sea, the number 2, and then Swamp. Rocky's got kayaks he's selling out of his Gulfport store. He's got fishing gear, man, rods, reels. He does repair service. He's carrying Brown Water gear over there. Go check him out. Shop local. And like I said, you can give him a shout at 228-205-3964. If you're trying to get off the couch, man, get back in the gym. You blew out the New Year's resolution. You haven't started yet. Forever Young Men and Women's Health. Look them up on Facebook as well. Kendrick over there, he can do some lab work on you. He can figure out what you need. Maybe you need some hormone replacement. Maybe you need testosterone replacement. He specializes in that for both men and women. Go check out the episode that we did with him. Like I said, Forever Young Men and Women's Health. Give them a shout at 228-363-6623 and tell them that Brown Water sent you. And pulling up the rear here, we got Dewey Do Bugs over in D'Iberville. They're specializing in boiled seafood. If you haven't been there to check it out, the menu is great. We hosted the Bay Rat Bash again there this year. And it was awesome, man. We love the building, the location, the staff. They're great. Everything was awesome. Like I keep telling everybody, go check out the Maverick. You will not be disappointed. Look them up on Facebook as well. Dewey Do Bugs.
Yeah, I saw Larry today. I was cutting grass and he pulled in. We also got an mentioned the app sponsor, Modern Recoil. They do CPR, AEDs, training, all that stuff. So any of the stuff you need, go download the app, check them out.
Check them out. That's right. So gentlemen, man, first of all, I want to thank y'all for stopping by and talking with us. These are always great episodes. We always have a fun time doing them. Jason, I think the last time you were on was in February, we said. It's been that long ago?
Yeah, I think so.
Good Lord, man. It's time flies when you're having fun. If you could, so if both of y'all would introduce yourself to the audience and your specialty, and then, we're going to talk about shrimp season and then boating safety, correct?
That's right.
So we'll start
Sure. Yeah, Jason Soche. I work in the Office of Marine Fisheries in the Shrimp and Crab Bureau, and been with the agency for a while now. And in our bureau, we work on managing those two fisheries, the blue crab fishery and the shrimp fishery in the state. So.
Good deal. I think you said last time we talked an hour about crab traps. So
yeah, it's close.
That's stuff to do.
And we enjoyed every minute of it. So
right.
I'm looking forward to today because shrimp season is a big topic that I know is near and dear to my heart.
Just started.
Yeah. So, and then you, sir.
So my name is Mike Strickland. I work in the Office of Marine Petroleum Captain over the Patrol Division. So all the officers that you encounter on the water, they fall under me. So,
okay, good deal. And so we're going to be talking about boating safety, things that you can do on the water to keep yourself and those around you safe, which is extremely important. But I think we should start with the shrimp season. So it's like Joey said, we're kicking off with shrimp season right now. How are things shaping up from y'all's perspective?
Sure. Yeah. So we opened up the season last week. We got out on the water we typically get out on opening day and do boat counts and try to survey the fishermen and see what they're catching. And we did that. We counted 52 boats, I think,
Really?
Opening day, something around there. I could be a little off there, but weather was great. Most of our effort that we did see that day was in the Eastern Sound. We didn't see a whole lot in the west, but that changes from day to day. I mean, the shrimp move. And so what they were catching and what they're still catching is probably 50, 60, 40, 50 brown shrimp. And then they're catching a lot of large whites. And so we do go check at the docks at our commercial harbors where they do sell the catch. And we encourage folks to get out there and try to buy some fresh shrimp. But they're catching some large whites, 10, 15 count, which is considered a jumbo pretty much. And that's available at all of our harbors. So Ocean Springs Municipal Harbor, there's a group of boats that sell there. Biloxi Small Craft Harbor, everybody's familiar with, right behind the Hard Rock. There's a larger group of boats there, and then Pass Harbor does have a group of boats that sell over there. I think it's in the Old Harbor. So we did go down there Friday and check in on them. We opened the season on Wednesday, so they had been fishing for a couple of days, and everybody had shrimp. So not an issue of availability,
Right.
from what we're seeing so far. And
Just a little bit smaller right now, you said, out the gate.
So that's typical for this time of year. We open up on a 68 count shrimp. And so, state law requires that we open up when they get to legal size. And that's our goal, is to make sure we get to a market size before we give them access to the area, to the fishing grounds. So that's what we do every year. It's generally in late May, early June. The last few years, we have seen some earlier openings like in late May. And so that's just the
Depends
trend
on rain
of late
and stuff like that, I'm sure.
Yeah. And if we have a harsh winter, if we have a lot of cold fronts, if the water temperature doesn't rise quick enough, that has a bearing on when they move out and the growth rate.
Yeah.
And so we do monitor starting in April, shrimp growth on a weekly basis. We actually do it twice a week starting in early May. And that way we can predict accurately when they're going to hit that legal size. And so that's the way we've always done it, for at least far back as I can remember, since I've been with the agency, and well before that. And so what it does is basically we shut down inside waters at the end of December, inside the lane or the ICW. That all shuts down at the end of December. And then the stuff west of Gulfport, areas west of Gulfport and south of the channel, also shut down at the end of April. And that is in an effort to protect next year's crop, or subsequent year's crop. And that's what we're interested in. Shrimp is basically an annual crop. So that's the way we look at it, and that's the way you manage it in most areas. So, that's what we're seeing so far. The brown shrimp will continue to get bigger on average as the season progresses. And so folks that want a medium size to a large size shrimp, give it a few weeks, give it a month, and the folks will be down there selling. This year, we saw them selling through February and even March, and then a couple of boats were selling in April. So there's an area that's open year round now, south of the ICW, east of Gulfport Ship Channel. So areas around Ship Island, Horn Island, south of those islands, they have to be a mile off, but those areas and Petty Boy, all that stays open. So they have access to the shrimp year round. So, I mean, there is some availability.
I think Mr. Rick's been pulling the entire time. He comes in every 2 weeks with shrimp.
Over in Ocean Springs? Yeah.
And so, I mean, even on opening day, the area where we saw the largest congregation of vessels, which was only 12 boats, they were working inside of the west tip of Horn. And so that was open already. And so they do have access. And so hopefully it'll continue like that, over the coming years, where they actually are catching and able to sell shrimp in the winter months, which has not historically been the norm.
Would you say the people that have to follow the area that closes, the area that's open now, are those more your, I don't know, recreational guys be the right word? They're not your large commercial boats. Is that accurate?
So we do have all of our active in-state boats, we call them like the Bay Fleet.
Right.
They're relatively small boats.
Correct.
So they're not the slabs that you see south of the islands that pull quads.
Right.
Those are smaller boats, and they almost exclusively operate inside the islands. They don't move out. That's just how they execute the fishery. Weather, all that kind of stuff, seas are different out there, and the depth is different. So a lot of those boats are skimmers now.
Yeah.
So they can't operate in deeper waters. They're limited by depth. But we do see a different fleet that operates in our waters than what you see the federal permit holders, basically. And those folks don't come inside.
Yeah.
But to your question, though, I will say we was out there opening day, and I'd probably say a third of the fleet that we saw
Mhm.
was recreational fishermen
Mhm.
on the inside.
That's good.
We actually boarded one boat, and he was holding up to big whites, one basket, one pull, and it was a good sized basket that he had up. I asked him how long he pulled. He said 45 minutes, and he was holding up to big jumbos.
Yeah.
whites and
Well, they
stuff.
need it because fuel
Mhm.
prices aren't getting any cheaper, ice prices, all that stuff. And shrimp are unfortunately going down with the imports. I know it's a huge topic. So
Yeah.
I know the big push for y'all is eat local, stay local, get all
Yeah,
of the shrimp you
certainly.
can.
Yeah, the director pushes that too. And everybody just needs to be a little more conscientious in their buying.
Mhm.
Correct.
They're using their dollars more effectively
Mhm.
to help support our local fishermen. So if you ask at the restaurants, that helps. And then also if you go to the docks and try to buy it direct, that helps
And
too.
that's so much more fun to me buying from the dock. You know what I mean? You get to see
Mhm.
the visual, smell everything, and
Yeah.
buy it from the person who caught it or part of the team that caught it. You know,
Mhm.
I don't know. It's just a cool experience to me that we probably take for granted down here.
Yeah, because most people don't get to do that.
That's what I'm saying.
Where else can you go in your backyard and walk
Right,
20 feet
right.
and go, hey, man, let me get some shrimp?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's not, already, just fresh right out
Yeah.
right off the boat.
We do see a large number of the folks that we see when we go do surveys at the dock. A lot of those people, they'll have 3 or 4 coolers in the back of the truck. They're coming from upstate
I know. That's
to
what I'm
come
saying.
down here or out of state to buy
Yeah,
because they don't take it for granted
right. That's what-
Yeah.
and it's worth the 4-hour drive, and they'll pay who knows what back home for those
Mhm,
shrimp. So
mhm.
they basically come down here and get a large amount and bring it home for them and for family members, save a bunch of money, and it's a cooler experience, and they know exactly where it came
That's
from.
right. That's right. I know friends in Hattiesburg that do that, which ain't, that's an hour and a half away, but same
Mhm.
thing. And I'm like, man, we take it for granted. It's a 10, 15-minute ride for us to go down there and grab some, and it's fresh off the boat. So
Yeah.
Mhm.
Where do the bait guys fall in with y'all as far as shrimp season?
So they can shrimp year round. So they have, and the reason for that is, it was written into law years ago that industry was going to be allowed to fish in closed waters to provide a service to the recreational anglers of the state year round. It had to be readily available. And so
Right.
that's why they were allowed to be exempted from the closures. With that came a lot of additional regulations on that group where they have to pull, limited tow times,
Mhm.
smaller gear. They can't trawl at night, limited dead shrimp on board to
Right.
make sure we're ensuring survivability. And then on the other side, the land side, they're held to a high standard as far as ensuring survivability of the shrimp. So making sure that the tanks are shaded, there's boards in the corner, there's adequate circulation. So there's a lot of additional regulations on that small group.
Right.
And it is a small group now, but it provides a great service to all of our anglers because we all know there's a super high demand,
Mhm.
ever growing demand for bait shrimp.
Oh, yeah. As Mr. Kenny told us last week, he said he gets about 9 million calls of, do you have any live shrimp? Do you have any live
Yeah,
shrimp?
it's a very small group, and part of the reason it's so small because they can charge a higher price per pound for the dead and a higher price per shrimp for the
Yeah.
live is there's a lot of overhead associated with
Oh,
those
yeah.
facilities, and they have to have it staffed 5 days a week, 8 hours a day during daylight hours. They got to be open the day after they go make a drag. All those are in regulations to make sure that resource is available to the recreational angler. So people don't see that on the outside, that they're held to a high standard.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And it's a very small group of folks pulling with smaller gear so that it's not out competing
Mhm.
our commercial fleet.
Right.
But
or hindering, I guess, the crop, as you said.
That's right.
Because it's year round.
right.
So is there a set quota like with snapper that they do with shrimp, or y'all just find something and shut the season down? How does that work?
So most of the states manage in a similar manner to Mississippi. There's usually an area closure, seasonal closure, and that's to help for recruitment for the next year.
Right.
We basically are shutting it down to provide nursery grounds. But shrimp is managed on a Gulf-wide basis as far as stock assessment goes. So there's currently a stock assessment being done for Penaids or shrimp in the Gulf. Penaids are pink,
Right.
white, and brown. We mainly catch white and brown
White,
here.
Yeah.
But they're updating or or doing a new stock assessment, and that's handled through Gulf Council. And so it's similar to the way snapper and other offshore reef fish and pelagics and highly migratory species. There's a number of species groups that are managed on a federal level
Right.
or on a Gulf-wide level. In shrimp, being that it occurs in federal waters and it's interjurisdictional, that's how the quotas are set. That being said, we don't get close to quotas. We don't
Yeah.
get close to the amount of biological catch that we can take. That's not an issue. And as of late, there's less and less effort occurring, not just in Mississippi, but federal waters, Louisiana, Alabama, Florida, Texas, everywhere is seeing a steady decline in the number of active licenses.
I believe it.
Oh, yeah,
That's,
the
that's
amount
a
of
hard. It's hard work.
That's a hard.
People
that's a
don't
hard
realize
business,
how
yeah.
hard it is.
Yeah.
So, and it's not as lucrative as it used to be. We talk about that all the time when we tell folks about it. And most of the folks that are tuned in with the fishery know that the price has been affected, severely by the competition from imports,
Yeah.
which, a lot of imports are brought into the U.S. So that really controls the market. And so that's why you're seeing less and less effort, even though there's plenty of shrimp out there. We do biological sampling to open the season, but we also do it throughout the year on a monthly basis, and nothing in our sampling has indicated that there's a decline in abundance. And so we do monitor it. All the other states monitor it. They monitor it in federal waters, and the stock assessments don't indicate that there's an issue biologically. It's
Just is it worth
it's
your
an
time
economic.
to go?
Yeah, when you said that we don't take anywhere near our quota, that struck me as odd. But then when you said that the effort is going down, that makes all the sense in the
Yeah,
world.
and
Unfortunately,
It's not always been the case. I mean, there's a moratorium on federal permits, and that was from a long time ago when there was a lot of effort and there was people that wanted to enter that federal fishery. So there's still a moratorium, but they are seeing a steady decline in the number of active vessels. And so at some point, if it continues in that manner, the feds and Gulf Council will have to take an action to look at possibly reopening the fishery to other participants. If it continues, and there's a threshold there that's been established through an amendment to the shrimp stock assessment and the shrimp FMP. So, but that's it's outside of our jurisdiction. But to answer your question, we do manage. We don't have a self-imposed quota within our state because all the shrimp are moving off.
Right.
Eventually, they move off to spawn, and so we only see them for a small portion or a portion of their life cycle. And so when they get out to federal waters, they're outside of our area. So
Yeah. Where is the closest place inshore that a shrimper can actually pull?
So a half mile is the line, the mainland from the mainland. That is the boundary.
Okay.
It's a little bit different around Deer Island, and it's a little bit different around when you get west of Bayou Caddy, the mouth of Bayou Caddy. So they can pull in closer west of Bayou Caddy.
Right.
Everything east of there is a half mile from the mainland. Let's say you're at the mouth of St. Louis Bay. It's a half mile from the CSX at that point. The
Okay.
CSX, takes the place of the mainland. And then where you're in the area of Deer Island, it's a half mile off of Deer Island. Deer Island is basically considered like the mainland in that area. So there is a little small area at the mouth of Biloxi Bay that is conditionally opened in the fall. If we see a lot of large white shrimp there and very few small shrimp, then we can open that up conditionally.
Now you said Deer Island. That's the south side.
South side, it'd have to be a half mile off the south side. The only folks that can shrimp in there inside are the bait shrimpers.
That's what I
guys.
thought.
Yeah. I just remember growing up when floundering and going down the beach during shrimp season, and you would see just a
Lights.
parade
Yes.
of boats, just lights everywhere, just waiting. And as soon as it would go, it'd be just like a flood.
I remember
And
that.
unfortunately, it's not like that
You
anymore.
don't see it so much anymore.
Yeah. On the boarding side of that, you brought up boarding a shrimp boat. Explain walk us through how you board that compared to a regular boat out in the water.
So if they're actively dragging, we know these guys are out there. So we've already discussed it's a hard living.
Right.
So inconveniencing them to pull their nets up so we can safely board that boat. We want to try and monitor that. Okay, so a lot of times I'll pull up beside them. We'll hail them on either VHF, or if we're able to communicate verbally, if we can get close enough to the boat.
Yeah,
I'll usually ask them how long they've been dragging.
Mm-hmm.
If the guy just dropped down, having him pull his nets back up for me to board his boat is going to be an inconvenience. So
Right.
we try to, there's a balance there. There's a fine line we walk. But typically we ask them to pull their nets up, depending on the size of the boat, sea conditions, et cetera, is where I'm going to board, whether I'm going to board from the rear or where I can board from the side. We'll make contact with the boat. One person operates the boat, another person jumps on, and we do an inspection there. We check for their license, make sure they've got their safety gear and everything that's there, make sure they're properly licensed. If they're pulling TEDs, okay, the turtle excluder devices, we make sure those are properly sewn in, make sure to properly do the measurements on them, make sure everything's in compliance there, and then usually pop right back off and jump down. If it's a big, like a big steel hull that's coming in from offshore, it's been out for several weeks.
right.
You can usually judge that by looking at how it's sitting in the water.
If she's slapped full, she's gonna be slugging a little bit.
If she's low in the water, you can tell she's been out for a little while. Then that inspection is a little more thorough, because then they have the opportunity to harvest a lot of different species of fish, different types of things that they would encounter. So we're going to do a much more thorough inspection down in the hole. Look at the bags of shrimp, check the freezer hole, make sure there's nothing in there, make sure there's no fillets on the boat, make sure there's no migratory species on the boat, make sure there's nothing, anything they're not supposed to illegally possess as far as the fish species goes.
Right.
And then of course the same thing there. Typically those boats will board from the rear. We make contact with the boat. Let him keep moving at whatever speed he's at. It doesn't really matter to me as the boat operator, because when I make contact, I'm going to push hard against him and maintain contact, and we'll just keep moving at 8, 10, 12 knots. Make that boarding. Boats never break contact. My officer's on and back off if there's not a violation. Pull off.
Yeah.
In and out.
Are y'all a 2-man team? How does that work?
So it depends. Never anything less boarding a shrimp boat, okay, than a 2-man team.
Yeah.
Most of the time it's going to be a 3-man team. All right, especially if we're targeting TED enforcement. So we work with NOAA under what we call a joint enforcement agreement. All right, and that's where we work with NOAA to go out and interact with the fisheries and make sure it's there. They can't be in all the places in all different states, so they do this with each individual state. We have targeted enforcements that we work with them: general enforcement, reef fish, TED enforcement, etc.
Right.
So if we're on a designated TED patrol, that can be inshore, mid-range, or actually a long-range patrol, and that's going to be a 3 to 4 man crew there, because you got, like he said, you got water depths, you got sea conditions, you got a lot of different variables out there, to where if an emergency did arise, we'll be able to handle it.
Well, tell the people that don't know in the audience what a TED is and why we have them and what the rules are on them.
Okay, so the measurements, they vary from inshore to offshore. Okay, and if you're not a commercial fisherman running these big boats, it's not really going to matter.
Right.
But it is designed so that as they move through the water, pulling shrimp lay on the bottom, that there's things that can byproducts of fish and turtles that can enter these nets. And what the turtle excluder device does is it allows the turtle, if it enters the net, to safely, as it travels through the net, it hits the excluder device and it gives it an escape route. But it also, the design of it, and if it's done properly and the measurements allow for the minimization of them losing shrimp counts, because there's actually a big hole in the net with this device that allows for the turtle to escape.
Right.
So we're trying to benefit the fishermen so they don't lose catch. All right. At the same time, minimize how many deaths we have by turtles, because they get caught in a net, although they're underwater for quite a bit of time, they'll drown.
We'll drag them to death.
Yep. So
yeah, we've made the joke before that you'd be better off with a dead human body on
Than
a boat than a turtle.
or a lease turn. Or a lease turn.
Yeah.
just about.
Like stepping over the dead body. What's that turtle over there?
You brought up bycatch. As shrimpers, are they allowed to keep any of that bycatch for bait and stuff like that and bring it in and sell it?
Yeah, so I mean, some of the some of the species, obviously, of finfish are managed species, so there's still size and bag limits that come into play, and they still have to, be compliant as far as commercial size limits on
Right.
anything. But a lot of what they catch is not managed species, so it would be considered like a bait species or
Pogies, stuff like that, yeah.
croaker, things like that. A lot of that has a secondary market, though,
Mhm.
and so if anybody who's been down to the Hard Rock and seen the folks selling off the boats know that they sell a lot of the finfish that they catch because there is a market demand for those
Absolutely.
bycatch species. So there's not as much waste as people expect. They do have to have proper licenses to be able to sell that, and they do have finfish net boat licenses. And if they want to sell the crabs, if they catch any crabs, those still have to be legal size, and they'll have a crab license for shrimp trawlers. But a lot of them do sell the other because they need,
They need to make it money any way they
whatever
can.
they can.
For sure.
But yeah, we do see that a good bit. So
I don't know. Do we slide into the safety part of things? Or you got any
Yeah,
more shrimp
no.
questions? I'm glad to hear that the stock is there. That was one of the
Yeah.
things that I wondered about. The effort decreasing. I get it, but I'm glad that the population is there. I
Yep.
guess can we import oysters so that people stop oysters? Is that will the same process work? Will they come back?
So oysters are a lot different.
You know what I mean?
And I'm
Like,
not an oyster expert.
how do we get those back?
I'm not an oyster expert, so I don't want to speak out of turn there. But I know oysters are regulated a lot differently
Yeah.
than any other seafood, and it has to do with it being available for
move.
raw market too,
Correct.
and the concern about human health or human safety and sanitation. So it's a little bit different than shrimp, which can be frozen,
Mm-hmm.
thawed out, and is for most folks, you're not able to discern a difference,
Right.
in taste. And so it's easy to mimic what's available on the local market with imported stuff.
Mhm.
And so I
Yeah.
think that's why we're in, the issue. We
One can
have.
dream.
I
One
guess-
can dream.
My last one on the shrimp thing, is there a total number of catch they can keep on a boat, or they can just load that boat to the absolute, you have to tow it in?
Yeah, there's not a boat or trip limit. That's self-imposed by the fishermen.
Whatever you
They
can
don't want
haul.
to sink the boat.
Right.
Right.
Because they get close in some cases. The more they bring in, the more profitable the trip is. So
Mhm.
we don't have a trip limit. The only thing we have a limit on with shrimp catch is recreational harvest with a cast net. And so a lot of people do that off of piers
Correct.
in the fall, or they do it under lights off a skiff and they go bait them and
Mhm.
in the bays.
Yeah.
I'm sure y'all seen that.
Oh, we do it all the time.
Yeah.
And so you got to keep the heads on the shrimp, and you can't have more than 50 pounds per person per day.
I didn't know that.
And that's a recreational limit.
Okay.
But that's a lot of
I
shrimp
was gonna
to
say
catch with a cast net.
that would be a lot to haul
Yeah,
in.
well,
Yeah, that's a
what-
lick.
Good luck trying to beat that one.
Would you mean heads on the shrimp, like while you're throwing for shrimp, you have to leave the heads on it?
Yeah, you got to leave the heads on the whole time.
Okay.
That way the officer can discern that this is 50 pounds or less. And
Because yeah,
so
Yeah,
Makes
you'd be a
Yeah.
a stud
You've
if you
done
caught 50
something.
pounds
Yeah.
off of a cast net.
Yeah.
Well, you'd be good.
sure it could be done.
Yeah.
But,
Well, in the fall, it can. Absolutely.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we've done it, but it's been a good minute,
Yeah.
right.
And it's baiting because we always use dog food. Throw the dog food down a Don sink. That's
yeah,
legal
that-
as far as
there's no regulation on that.
all right.
Thank God.
Yeah. Because I've been going to jail for a long time.
Yeah, but so the law enforcement side of things, I think, is the face that maybe most people see and recognize, remember. And that's one of the things that we enjoy about doing these partnerships with y'all is to hear the other side of what y'all do on the science side. But the law enforcement side is extremely important,
Yeah.
and safety is obviously important. So I know one of the questions that we wanted to lead with, right, Joey, was
Well,
the,
y'all are usually the bad guys.
Not always.
Unfortunately,
Yeah,
y'all are usually
yeah,
labeled
yeah.
as the bad guys.
well, I was going to say, so what from your perspective, some of the things you see out on the water that we could give people tips for safety?
Yeah.
That they maybe that not the obvious thing, maybe that we're missing that you're not doing, that people aren't doing.
So it's a very good question, and I'll tell you specifics. We can sit here and round table this, and
Right.
you can say, "Hey, when I was on the water, I saw this," and it's not right, but you
Mhm.
observe it. So we could round table this for a while. But I would say the most important thing that I see with people is just the situational awareness, them not understanding anything about rules of the road or navigation. They start doing good at work. They make good money. They go buy a boat and just completely unaware of how that boat operates, how wind and sea conditions can affect you, to know that there are rules of the road. There's no lines out there. There's no markers. You have very little signage out there for things, but there are rules of the road that you need to adhere to and understand, that makes it safer for everyone else. If you start with the basics, everybody that's by law, everybody that's born after June 30th, 1980 has to complete a boat and water safety course. All right. And that course in Mississippi has to be approved through the Mississippi Department of Wildlife, Fisheries, and Parks. So that's one. Take a boating class. Take that course. Have that license with you. It must be present. It must be on you, just like a driver's license or anything else.
And I saw some. I try to set Avery up for it. Most of them are free now.
Absolutely,
they're offering free.
It's on y'all's website.
Absolutely, we do classes all year long. The gentleman that you mentioned earlier, Lieutenant Payne, he does a great job working with a lot of the citizens and residents and making sure those classes are done. We offer them several times a year and publish that on our website so that people can go to it easily and say, hey, this is a class, and it's just simply signing up for it.
Right.
It's a one-day class. Usually it's I think it's about 8 hours, and it's very easy, but it gives you that knowledge to understand that when you take ownership of that boat and you step behind the wheel of that boat, you're responsible for everything and everyone on it, and not only just your actions, but the actions that your boat can cause, such as I think you mentioned earlier. I'll give you a classic example. We was Memorial Day weekend is our big kickoff weekend for the summer, and there's a small island. They call it Cricket Island up in the Biloxi River.
Okay. Oh yeah. So Grasshopper, you're talking about, right?
No.
The other one. Okay.
Yeah, Cricket's a little further up.
Okay.
Yeah.
But it's a very small sandbar, and it's right on a bend. And it's right as soon as you come under I-110, traveling south.
I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah.
All right. Yeah. So it's a great place for people to gather up, and of course, when you're trying to.
Y'all were sitting right there this weekend.
We were, because we work in a boat accident there.
Oh,
yes.
Okay.
Yes.
That's right. Just south of Pier 15, right?
That's correct.
Yeah. I was leaving work and I saw y'all out there.
Right. We were there.
Yeah.
We go there every weekend because there's always a complaint.
It's a bad corner.
It is.
It's a very bad corner.
But here's the thing. People talking about a wake, all right? They don't understand. That means basically clutch ahead, idle speed. Your boat's not casting anywhere.
Correct.
That doesn't mean slow to a speed so that your stern is like this and your bow is up.
Because that's even worse.
It's way worse.
Exactly. They may be saying, hey, I'm going slow, but they're creating such a big wake. And they're thinking, what's the big deal? And you look over on the island there, and here's all these people, standing on the sandbar and in their boat. But then all of a sudden, you take a closer look and you see the people that are standing in between two boats.
Yeah,
and they're exactly.
Yeah,
the wake comes by, the two boats go together, and if that's a small child, if it's anybody,
right,
they're hurt. So they're not thinking about those kind of things. They look at it as an inconvenience. I can't believe I got to slow down again, man.
Yeah.
But those are the kind of small things that we look at. It's small in the mind of the person operating the boat, but the implications of that can be deadly.
What you nailed it though. People don't realize, like, you'd be better off going full speed
100%.
than to do the 1/4 speed where you're doing this. That creates a way bigger wave.
Not going on record. I'd rather you go 60.
I'm saying it's better if you go faster. Don't
100%.
do that. But out of the three options, the slowest, fastest, and then the thing most people do is the worst.
Yeah, the thing most people do is the worst.
Yeah, and they don't mean it, but it's like, come on, guys.
I've always found it crazy that to drive a car, you have to get in the car and actually drive it and take a test. To drive a boat, I mean, all you got to have is that one little course, and you could, however big a boat you want, and take it off.
And every like any vehicle you get into, most of them are going to react to or act a certain way. A vessel is very different.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, there's no brakes.
No, everyone operates differently. Everybody has a way of driving that vessel that's different than somebody else. So I mean, each one is inherently different in the way that you operate it. But if you can just if everybody had a little bit more situational awareness, a little bit more courtesy to the people around them, I think that would go a long way. And then obviously you mix in other factors such as alcohol.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay. We just had Jeep in the Coast.
Mhm.
All right. And that's a big event. When they were getting ready to do that, no one said, hey, let's load the Jeep down with a couple of coolers of beer and let's go cruise down Highway 90.
Mhm.
No one does that. No one says, hey, let's go out and just do a Sunday drive. It's a pretty day. Take the top off the Corvette or the Mustang or whatever. It doesn't matter. Take the top off and let's just get a cooler of beer and go drive.
Mhm.
But that's the mentality when it comes to operating a boat.
Correct.
And they limit their water consumption through the day. They're out there drinking alcohol all day. They're out at the islands for 6-7 hours, and then they start coming back in. Now you got the effects of 8, 10, 6 beers, whatever it may be, dehydration, sun, wind, everything else. Those are stressors that actually basically make alcohol, operating a boat under alcohol a lot more dangerous. Those factors coming in. So if you're traveling down a two lane road, you see a car coming at you, you see the car come across the line, you immediately take action because that's a no-go. You're not supposed to do that.
Right.
2 vessels approaching each other without lines or, what size mine, what size his, depth perception and everything else. A lot of times the reaction to avoid a collision is way too late because they're thinking, okay, he's there, I'm here, he's supposed to move, I'm not supposed to move. There's nothing that sticks out that says, oh my God, that boat's doing something wrong,
Right.
until it's too late a lot of times.
Yeah.
That's
You got to
why-
have a head on a swivel.
Well, the river, man, is not my favorite place to be,
No.
especially on the weekends, because of what you're talking about. It's like driving on a road without the lines. At least out in the Gulf and the Channel, there's slightly more forgiveness. You know what I mean?
You have a lot more room to correct.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
There's
Right.
big pine trees on either side of that river. Unfortunately.
yeah, exactly. And people going like it's an interstate. on
Yeah.
that thing,
It
too.
doesn't make
So-
any sense to me, but
But safety though, so life jackets obviously is a big one. I'm sure that y'all check for, right?
So, to go over the safety things for the state of Mississippi, we require a U.S. Coast Guard personal flotation device for everyone that's on board.
right.
If any of the kids are 12 and under or under 12 in a vessel that's 26 foot or less, they've got to wear it anytime that vessel's underway.
Mhm.
Now, here's the thing. Underway means any time that you are not anchored or moored or docked. So even if you're not on anchor, you're just floating, that's considered underway. Child's under 12 has got to have a PFD.
Even
Yeah.
on a trolling motor or any of that.
Any of that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
6 foot above, they have 4, which is a throwable device.
yeah.
Yep. So you got to have one of those on board. If you can't readily reach in the back of your vessel, grab your fuel tank and throw it out, in the case of a fire or something like that, you got to have a fire extinguisher on board. You also have to have a sound producing device. Vessels that are equipped with a horn, that's sufficient. If it doesn't have that, then you can buy the air horns at West Marine,
Or whistle,
Walmart,
something like
whistle,
that, yeah.
any of that is sufficient. Flares. A lot of people ask us about flares. Flares are only required if you're going to be in a body of water that's greater than 2 miles wide. So typically anything south of Highway 90, we look at being a body of water that's great enough for flares to be required on a vessel. In order for the flares to count, they can't be expired.
Yeah.
Flares do expire. I'd be surprised how many times I've opened a hatch to somebody pull out their flares and they're dripping with water, and I say, "You do understand flares are pyrotechnic, right? They
Yeah.
don't
They're not going to work like that.
they don't do good with water."
Yeah.
But I will tell you, if the flares are expired, most of my guys will tell you, "Hey, that's a courtesy citation,
Right.
verbal warning. Let's get it fixed. Okay, next time you come out, let's make sure you have it." Attitude, demeanor, and other stressors or
Correct.
other factors can always determine how that stop's going to go.
Absolutely.
But typically, that's the way we operate.
Mhm.
But if they are expired and they haven't been subject to water, don't throw them away. Just buy new and keep those, because if you
Never
ever are in a
know, yeah.
situation where you need
you
them,
want to have as many as you can.
Yeah.
you're right, man.
Fire them lugs
Hey,
off.
you ain't got enough, I promise you.
Yeah.
So
And it's funny you say that because what we're just reading that story that you sent me the other day.
Yeah, I brought up about those guys that left snapper fishing out of Gula, and they ran to right behind Dolphin Island, and the boat, I guess
In the story, it didn't say.
the boat, I don't know, it either delaminated or the hole split or something like that, and they were done.
It was a 26-foot.
I want to say Key West.
No, started with a P. I thought
I don't know.
Pursuit.
maybe.
I don't remember. Anyway, it was a big boat.
Yeah.
And in the article, do you know what we're talking about?
Mm-mm.
Yeah, it was just like just a week or so ago, and the guy said that the boat went down like super quick. It was not an old boat, like not a boat they'd expected to sink as quick as it did. They don't know what happened, at least at the time of the story, they didn't. But they had the EPIRB, and they said they would not be here today had it not been for them having that. And the only reason they had that is because one of the guys who was on the boat with them, his wife made him take it with him.
Yeah,
and
typically that you don't see that unless it's on a larger boat.
Correct.
Yeah.
Someone who's going way offshore.
Correct.
They automatically think, okay, as long as I'm out there, I'm going to be okay. But I mean, once you're south of the islands, you lose cell phone service unless you got a sat phone.
Yeah.
So yeah, I recommend that for everything.
But the article even talked about. I don't know how they could watch the Coast Guard going back and forth and passing them,
Mm-hmm.
and I guess they were trying to triangulate on that signal. I'm not sure, but he said had they not had that, they would not have found it.
Yeah, they were trying to. So that when that EPIRB goes off, it actually sends a coordinates to where they're at.
Yeah.
Now they're just like anything else that floats. They're going to be moving with the wind and current. So that's what they were probably trying to do is just locate exactly because that coordinates is going to be moving on them the whole time. But it immediately gets them in that area to where, we have a saying, unfortunately, in my part of the Office of Marine Patrol, we have to do a lot of recoveries.
Yeah.
And so many people say it happened right there. They went down right there.
Mm-hmm.
And it takes us a good bit of time to locate people sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Most of our dives are not in crystal clear waters.
Yeah.
All right. They're in brown water, black water.
Yeah.
Once you're 8 feet down, you have zero visibility.
And the whole thing's moving.
Yeah.
Everything's moving. Wind, current, tide, everything.
And we have a thing, if you miss by an inch, miss by a mile.
Correct.
And so we've been all in the area before, and there's certain different ways that our divers, which is we have some of the best divers in the state of Mississippi too. Our divers are phenomenal. They train for this kind of stuff all the time.
Yeah.
They train in those types of situations, cold, heat, black water, so they're very good at what they do. But it just seems like a lot of times, from the victims there who are wanting a quick recovery so they can get that family member back. It takes a while. So even in a subsurface situation, you got chop and everything else. If you're dealing with a single individual, unless they've got something that really makes them stand out, such as a color or something like that, they're going to blend right in. A lot of times we'll miss them. Now, one of the great things that's helped us out is the introduction of thermal on a lot of our boats. So that doesn't really, I take a lot of those factors out immediately when I turn thermal on, whether it be day or night.
Right. And that's if they're surface level.
Level. Yeah.
Have y'all, I know with with technology coming up with side scan and front scan and stuff like that, have y'all implemented some of that stuff?
Yeah. So every one of our vessels has side scan capability.
Right.
And we do training on that. There's several different programs out there. There's some great ones we've attended from Louisiana that actually teach you how to read side scan, see anomalies that are on the bottom, and be able to identify whether that's a human or some other part of trash.
Wreckage or something. Yeah.
And a lot of times we're not able to tell until we actually send a diver down. But we locate and we find good targets, and that's where we're going to send them down. But yes, all our vessels have the side scan. Most of our larger vessels have thermal capability. And if the vessel doesn't have thermal capability, our officers have thermal capability. So when we're
glasses or scopes or something like that. Yeah.
And that helps us. Like I say, that's day or nighttime situations that helps us identify.
Yeah. You mentioned two things I was going to go back to. One was the throwable. On that can't be the life jacket itself, right?
No, it cannot be the life jacket itself. Most of the ones you see for a throwable that automatically pops in people's mind, two things: one, the square throw ring that you can buy at Walmart, or the other, the round that has the boat name on it or something like that. Yeah.
Okay. And then the second thing you mentioned is something we talk about on the show a lot. With like a lot of people have moved here over the past probably 15 years. Out of town people that didn't grow up here. Boats for some reason are more expensive, but more people own them. Haven't figured that one out yet.
Doesn't make any sense.
Motors are bigger. Everything's like bigger, badder, whatever. But like, it seems to me like you got way more people out there and a lot less experienced people who didn't grow up on the water. Right? Do y'all notice that? See that?
100%.
Yeah.
100%. And I'll say this: our recreational traffic, our recreational boater, it seems to grow every year.
Every year.
I mean,
It's crazy.
every weekend I make a plan for this, and this is what I'm basing my, what to look at the weather and see what's going to be, and I say, okay, this is how I'm going to set patrol up for that weekend. That's going to be the number of bodies that are actually going to be out in the water,
Right.
Mhm.
and I'll just get phone calls from lieutenants, and they're like,
Dude.
it's a highway. It is a highway
yeah.
heading
Yeah.
to Sand Island or Horn Island or something like that, and it's as they're going out, it's not a big deal, but all of a sudden, man, 4:30, 5:30 in the afternoon, everybody starts looking around. And
Yep.
it's like, in the summertime too, we always get those pop-up thunderstorms,
Mhm.
and it's like a mad rush.
Yeah.
You got 1,200 boats coming back in from Horn Island, and everything's fine out there in the big part. And then
Till they
everything starts,
squeeze in.
yep.
Yep. It's
And everybody gets under the CSX, and then it's just kind of, it gets bad.
It's like cattle. When one starts to run, then another one runs, and everybody's, why are we running? I don't know. And it's all the boats are headed in at
I
one
think
time.
the worst I've ever seen it in between the CSX and Ocean Springs Bridge was the
Blue
airplane
Angels.
show.
Blue Angels. It was bad.
That was the worst I've ever been
Yes.
in a boat.
Yes.
And I've been on the water in that back bay my entire life. And I
Yes.
was like, I'm not doing this.
I have video. I have
I'm not
video,
doing it again.
I have video of it saved on a Google Drive somewhere. But and I don't know if you ever noticed, video doesn't do any type of
Justice,
wave
yeah.
justice. I've watched videos before. I'm like, that it was way worse than that. It
Way.
doesn't look like it on the thing.
Even
This-
if you're from an elevated spot looking down, it takes away from the wave action. That's
Yeah.
out there, actually.
It was like Joey's saying, there were so many boats that left that little bitty area right there in front of the Golden Nugget and then Harrah's, because that's where the show was. They all funneled right through that spot you're talking about. I mean, and it was like waves coming from every single direction because
bouncing
there was
off
so
the
much
bridge,
traffic.
bouncing off a boat, bouncing off of people,
It was
bouncing
bad.
off of
It was bad.
everything.
I haven't
Yeah.
been nervous on a boat in a while, and I was nervous that day.
Yeah.
And luckily, it's close. But
Yeah. And unfortunately, most of the time we see the negative side of that. We see the end result of that.
Yeah.
And, a lot of times, I will say this too, before I say it.
Mm.
Law enforcement as a whole, no matter how you want to look at it, some people look at it, and like you said, you mentioned, we're going to be the bad
You're
guy.
gonna be back.
All right.
Yeah.
that was Joey for the
Yeah,
record.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
that was Joey.
We're going to be
Just for
the
the
bad
record.
guy. But I will tell you, as a whole,
Pull him up.
Mississippi residents are phenomenal.
Yeah.
I couldn't find a better place to work for,
Mm.
better citizens to work for, and we get so much support out there on the water. But we also get those things that immediately, once we spot a violation, we make the stop. It's immediately you get the what the
Oh, you're just
why
why are you
yeah.
just singling me
You
out?
just see all this
Yeah.
other stuff, and it's like that single violation. I can tell you how this day is going to end if you keep doing that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
You don't see that. All you see is you're coming back in with your family. But I can tell you how that day is going to end if you
Mhm.
keep doing that.
Mhm.
So unfortunately, we do run into that, and that's why I tell all my guys, man, when you first start talking to people, these we're not dealing with criminals.
Right.
Yeah.
You're dealing with violators. No different than you when you're doing 75 and a 55.
Mhm.
Okay, that's what we're dealing with 90% of the time. And we do have our few out there, but most of the time that's who we're dealing with. So when you start your conversation off with these people and you stop, you talk to them like you just walked out of church,
Mhm.
and you give that person the opportunity to see whether you're going to have to escalate or whatever. So
Right.
I always tell people your attitude is going to dictate my demeanor.
Correct.
100%.
That's
I'm, good,
pretty
I'm
much
good with that because
that's pretty much law enforcement across the board. You
Pretty
get out trying to act like
Right.
really badass, and then it's going to turn around and bite you.
What are some of the big violations though we that you could talk about? We talked about no wake zones. That's one of the ones you were talking about, right? That's
and y'all are in charge of those, correct? Am I?
To an extent.
Okay.
So if a resident feels that is a justification for a wake zone in an area, okay, that is not classified by state law. There is a definition for wake zone by state law, and that's if you're within 100 feet of a public marina,
okay.
100 feet of a vessel that's on anchor or moored that's occupied, 100 feet outside of a public harbor or boat launch area or something like that. Those are designated no matter what. I'll stick a sign on it. That's going to be a no wake zone. No different than you own this property. You're not allowed on. I don't need to put a sign on it that tells you you don't own this and you can't be here.
Right.
So those are the designated ones. But there are, city councils and stuff like that, residents that say, hey, this is a dangerous area for all these reasons. We need to make this a no wake zone. And it can go before the council. And if it's voted upon there that, yes, this requires a wake zone, then they submit that to us and we do some research on it. We look at how is this going to affect vessel traffic in the area? Are the justifications actually there for it being there for, because it is sometimes an inconvenience.
So kind of like around
area.
cricket
Absolutely.
Yeah.
would be perfect
Yeah.
for a no wake zone. You know what I'm saying? So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
but
So-
I guess my thing is we always go to Deer Island. You got
Mhm.
boats parked on Deer Island, then you got a small craft right across.
Mhm.
You know, it's
Never fails.
never fails, wide open. I know you're 100 feet. There's no way. You know what I'm saying? It's,
So 100 feet, a lot of people don't realize this. And this is one of the things I do tell when I talk to people that really scared them. 100 feet. They're like, no way, I was way outside 100 foot. I said, you know how long a ski rope is? Most ski ropes?
50.
75.
Okay.
So think about 75 foot behind you, what that looks like when you're pulling a
That's
skier
long,
or a
that's
tuber.
long, yeah.
That's a long. So you got another 25 foot on top of that
Mhm.
to where you can't be in a wake zone, or when you're coming by a vessel that's on anchor or something like that, and the kids
Yeah.
are swimming, or like you say at Cricket Island or anything like
Yeah.
that. 100 foot's is a good piece.
Mhm.
yeah.
So-
I mean, when you got boats piled up, especially like last weekend, I think last weekend was Deer Island was so packed. I don't think you could have had another boat in there. And then somebody comes and throws a wake, and you got 50
Right.
boats beating up against
Right.
each other.
Yeah.
It's just inconsiderate.
I'm getting so old that I'm the get off my lawn age of I don't like going out on the big weekends anymore like that just because it's too packed.
I have a lot of friends that say the same
Those
thing.
are the ones I don't want to go on now.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Those weekends. I'd rather just stay home.
Or just buy an island where we can go by ourselves. we'll buy
Goals.
Goat Island.
Yeah, we'll buy Goat Island and mow that thing down and just party there.
So the negligent side, negligent operation is probably our biggest one we see, and that can be, anything from not being legally drunk according to state law, which is same as operating a vehicle. If your blood alcohol content is 0.08 or higher,
Mhm.
you're considered legally drunk.
Yeah.
But even operating a vessel, if you're slightly impaired or anything like that, can be considered a negligent operation of that vessel.
Now, is that a different? Isn't it a DUI compared to a BUI? Or
So that would actually be, so you actually have negligent operations involving alcohol. Okay. So it's not listed as a BUI, boating under the influence.
Right.
But if they're 0.08 or higher, or if there's a refusal involved when we take them to ADC or someone like that to
Mhm.
blow them on the
Breathalyzer,
intoxicator.
yeah.
Yeah. So if there's a refusal there, we can't, 100% say his blood alcohol content's above 0.08. I can tell you indicators are going to say that it's above this, or should be at this point based on the indicators I get, but I can't legally say I know exactly what it is. So you can charge him for negligent operation involving alcohol, because all you need to say is, well, one, he was operating a vessel negligently by doing this, and through his admittance of saying he was drinking,
Mhm.
or physical evidence on the vessel,
Mhm.
or sight, smell, sound,
Mhm.
he was under the influence of alcohol. It
Yeah.
could still be negligent operations.
Is it like a vehicle DUI? Like you get one or two and you can lose your boating privileges? Is that
So you can actually lose your boating privileges on the first one. All right. If
Okay.
you're found, if you refuse the intoxilizer,
Uh-huh.
and you're found guilty in a court of law for being under the influence of alcohol, you lose your boating privileges for a year.
Damn.
wow?
Yeah, and that's a court order. So if anybody out there sees you, observes you operating a boat, make the stop, run your name, and you're operating a vessel, it's a violation of court order. You're a contempt of court. That's an automatic
You're going to
trip
jail.
to
Jail, yeah.
Yeah.
A free boat ride back.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
What else though? I remember one time being young, very young, and I didn't know what bow riding was, and we were hanging our legs off the front of a bow and got pulled over. Guy was this is years ago,
Yeah.
and they're like, you can't hang your leg off the front, and it was a little tiny skiff.
Yeah.
We didn't know any better.
Yep.
Is that what other things like that?
So bow riding on the gunnel, not being in approved seating for a boat. I give you an example. We stopped a party barge coming back from Deer Island this past weekend, and he was making way. Had two twin 350s on it.
Wow.
Yeah,
It was a
nice barge. Yeah.
And when I smoked past it, I looked back, and of course there was a lot of people on the boat. But I looked back, and there was a girl who was actually sitting between the motors, and she
Peeing.
was,
Yeah.
and the dude was standing
Still
there. Yeah, and it was still going.
Holy
Now, I understand
moly.
we all understand you got to do that, but
Right.
come down off plane.
Correct. Yeah. We all know that. Yeah.
She slips,
Yeah.
it's over.
Yeah.
There
that's
was
a bad deal.
20 plus people on this boat. So the operator was, his ability to
See,
monitor everything
yeah.
around him, and the mixed with the music on the vessel,
Probably didn't
The
have
girl-
a spotter, nothing like that.
If
yeah.
she would have fell, he would have never known it.
Yeah.
He would have never known it.
I try to make people hold a rope too. Right.
Yeah.
My dad told me that he did that one time. He was like, jump off the boat right now and see if you can swim back. It was a kid, you know?
Yeah.
I'm like, all right, boom. Couldn't catch it because the current was moving.
Yep.
And he knew that, you know, he
Yep.
thnew me a rope. He's like, you see, don't ever forget that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And I
that's
never
good.
did.
That's
Yeah.
good. We see that a lot with kayaks. I remember 2 drownings I worked not a couple years ago, and it was the same situation. Went in, and of course, you know, a kayak's very light,
Mhm.
stuff's on top of the water. If the wind's moving at 8, 10, 12 knots,
Can't catch it.
you're not going to catch it.
Yeah.
And you exhaust yourself. Once you
Correct.
exhaust yourself, you see where you're located, if it's night or it's evening or daytime, and you look how far land is, panic sets in, and even a good swimmer at that point, he's going down.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But they
So-
they do follow some of the same rules though, as far as life jackets, whistles, and stuff like that. It's on a kayak.
Yes. So a lot of it is the same,
Yeah.
but you'll find that most people aren't wearing their PFD when they're kayaking.
Right.
It's shoved up under a counter under 16 bungee cords.
Mhm.
That if they had to get to it in an emergency
They'll never get it
situation,
out.
they're not going to get to it.
Yeah.
Okay. So they don't fall under all the same safety requirements because there's only one person on a kayak, so that person's got to have a PFD. The flare requirement's not there. The sound producing device and Type 4, none of that's there. So
Yeah.
it's just basically the PFD.
I'd
for
want to
that
be
person.
tethered to the kayak though. You know what I mean? Some type of
Well, you usually have a
band.
leash, especially
Right,
for
that's
your
what I'm
rod
saying.
reels
That's what I'm
and for
saying.
you. But most people don't
Mhm.
don't do everything they're supposed to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, but bow riding is one of those ones, and you know, it's just. I will say this: over the years, you've seen where bow riding is, people are usually just cruising,
Mhm.
slow speed.
Mhm.
They're not thinking they're doing anything wrong,
Yeah.
and you know that the person sitting on the bow or riding on the gunnel, he's not holding on or anything like that. The operator of the boat and everybody on the boat, they're thinking, "Man, I'm going slow. Why are you stopping me?"
Mhm.
But they're not thinking about everything else that's going on, and they're not thinking about the person that's coming at them that ain't paying attention,
Mhm.
or the person that's going to pass them in an overtaking situation way too close and wait them.
Yeah.
Or, you know, if you do have to make a quick corrective action, you know how it is. It can all go that way. So they don't see when I see it, I see the end result. When they see it, they a lot of
Yeah.
times look at it as harassment.
Right.
Or just a little kid that's just playing around and slip, and
Correct.
you have no time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't have enough time to slow them into neutral. It's pretty much over.
Yeah.
Yeah. We saw what was it's been a couple years ago. The guy that hit the dredge line, right?
Yeah.
Kicked
Yeah.
the motor up.
Yep.
I mean, it's that quick. You know,
Yep.
that quick.
That's
Yeah, I
tough.
worked that one too. So it was,
Yeah. I heard it was not good. Mhm.
So,
That's not good at all.
and he was by
was-
all means, he was a very experienced
Yeah.
vessel operator.
Correct. That's what I'm saying. I mean, it's just, something freak accident. Another guy got hit by the
Yeah.
train bridge.
Well, yeah, they had
know.
that one. He had the kid that died in Fort Bayou in the same way.
Yeah.
And just running at night, hitting something floating, not knowing what was
Yep.
there, and then nothing you can do about it.
Mhm.
And you can't control those kind of things. We worked on Memorial Day weekend.
How was it?
It was very good. I mean,
Okay.
we didn't have any deaths. I think we only had like 5 boating under the influence. There's a couple negligent operations involving alcohol. And the great thing about that party barge, I stopped just to show you how much it's changed over the past couple of years. They had a designated driver.
So yeah,
Okay.
So I mean, all I did once. He was doing so many things right, in my opinion, based on the way everybody else was acting on that vessel. There was a large amount of alcohol on the vessel.
Mhm.
The passengers had been consuming quite a bit, but
Right.
they had made a conscious decision that day that you're going to be the sober guy that's going to drive us back home tonight. And he was on plane, but he wasn't flying. He was in wide open water.
Right.
So yeah, pay attention to your passengers on the back. They were doing this. That's why I stopped you. That's why I noticed you. But
So
hey,
he didn't.
thank you.
He didn't know that person was doing that.
No.
Yeah.
That's why I say he couldn't see all of that
Right.
from his position and operate the boat. But I said, hey, it's just verbal warning. You know,
Yeah.
he was compliant with me, and in my opinion, based on the amount of alcohol that was on that boat, for them to make a conscious decision today that hey, you're going to get us home safely was
Good for you to see. Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah,
And
I'm
I
sure.
see a lot more of that, even from fathers or families. Hey, son's driving them home. 12 years old, 13 years old. He's standing right there telling him everything to do, but hey, he's getting them home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
And that's another thing with you talking about the driving test or whatever. The age is 12, I believe, right?
Yeah.
Which I think is a great thing.
Yeah, mine drives.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
She can't drive all. Once we get to the pier, and it gets
That's a different
hairy.
situation.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
she can drive it
You
straight.
got to
line.
work your way up.
Right?
You got to
Yeah,
work your way up.
Well, I guess to end or getting close to the end, what does your fleet consist of? out there?
Well, we have a lot of boats. So we have let's call them 3 26-footers that are a blackjack, a couple Nautic Stars.
Yeah.
We have about 3 22-footers. We have 2 24-footers. We have a 41-footer. We have 2 33s, 1 2 27s. Let's see what else we have.
So are these in the water at all times, or y'all put them in the water and then whatever patrol need?
Most of the vessels that are 27 foot or less are on land.
Okay.
Everything 27 foot, 26 foot above is either on a floating dock or right there where we can launch it readily.
Right.
What we call our offshore fast response vessels are right there on the water. It's a floating dock. We drop it down, 20 seconds, we're off the dock and we're rolling.
Where are y'all in the small craft, or where are y'all at?
We have them staged all over.
Yeah.
Past Christian, Long Beach.
Yeah, because I was going to say,
Smallcraft.
what's your territory?
So we're state line to state line up to
Yeah.
200 miles out.
Really?
So, yeah.
Wow.
I didn't realize y'all went that far.
Yeah, I didn't either.
Yeah. So it's about 1,200 square miles that we regularly patrol on a regular basis. But we have, so mentioned earlier when we work under our joint enforcement agreement, all right, that's when we basically a deputized federal officer, and we'll go out into federal waters on those designated patrols, and they can go up that far out.
So working hand in hand with the Coast Guard, pretty much.
Yeah, I mean, they're a partnering
Right.
agency, and they will utilize us. We utilize them, but it's usually only in emergency situations
Right.
that we'll utilize Coast Guard.
What's the overlap there between like y'all and like the sheriff's department, who have their couple boats of their own?
Okay, so most of the laws that are in place are state statutes. Okay, so Jackson County Sheriff's Department, Goshen Marine Patrol, Biloxi has a Marine Patrol unit, Long Beach. All of them have that's on the water may have 1 or 2 vessel assets that they can employ. They're mainly out there as a force multiplier 90% of the time.
Okay.
But they have the jurisdiction and authority that if they observe any of the state statute violations, they can enforce them just like we can.
Okay.
So you'll see on busy weekends that they'll come out and help us a lot, and it's really good because we partner with them and tell them the high patrol or high traffic areas that we think we're going to have a problem, and just officer presence in those areas is a force multiplier that can deter illegal actions or negligent operations or bad behaviors. So we work closely with them. They work closely with us. We got a great relationship with all the law enforcement agencies on the coast.
That's awesome. We've talked about it on the regulation side of things and the science behind everything to try to communicate to our audience that DMR is working for the state and for us as the recreational guys and all that. Glad to hear you say the same thing about the law enforcement side of things, that it's a place you love to work and a community that you love to patrol and represent. So that means a lot,
Yeah, it's great. I love it. It's the greatest job I ever had. Citizens are great. Overwhelming support. Overwhelming compliance. You have a few bad apples, and you can have that in anything.
Correct.
But overwhelmingly, it's support is there.
Yeah.
What does y'all's website have like quick reference guides to some of the things that you went over today when you talk about vessel requirements and statute stuff like that?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So the state statutes, no, that's gonna, you can pull those up under Mississippi Code 1972 annotated section for your state statutes, but all of our regulations that are put in place by the DMR, those are titles. Those are on our websites and they're published right there. And actually, Title 22, I forget what it is, part something. I think it's.
Yeah, I see you said before
Yeah,
the show.
notes.
You
Yeah.
said
Part
before
three.
the show we weren't going to
Part
bring it
three.
up, and we did. You brought it up.
Yeah, I didn't bring it up.
Part 3, boat and water safety. Everything we talked about is included in that.
So your checklist, all that, everything you need to stay legal is on there.
Part 16. I'm sorry,
Yeah.
Part 16.
Okay. Well, I'll put a link to. So I'll go to your website and put a link.
Absolutely.
On here. So, man, I think this was a good one. I knew it. We always enjoy these, man. We appreciate y'all's time and coming in. I'm glad to hear good reports on the shrimp season.
Yeah. And you have your own link on the website as well that has y'all's data on there.
We do. We've got a shrimp and crab page. You get to it through the Office of Marine Fisheries, but all of our big events, like when we had the derelict closure and shrimp season opening, we'll put that right on the front page for people to see.
Right.
And so that way, it's the main stuff is there. And we do a lot of Facebook, social media posts. We've got some folks upstairs that do a really good job with
I
that.
have seen that lately. Y'all's Facebook page has been active. It's been pretty cool to see.
What's the best way to get in touch with either of y'all? I mean, like, I know not y'all, but just the Bureau itself. How can we get in touch with it? Email is better, or go to Facebook?
Somebody got a question or something like that?
Yeah, if somebody's got if somebody's got a question like that, we have a designated email line for info and things like that, and they'll forward that to the proper channels. If it's a law enforcement question or a boat and water safety question, or if it's on a fishing side or something like that, they can forward it to them. Or you can call the main number, and then, man, if you ask for me, it goes straight to me.
There you go.
Yeah,
I'm not too busy to take phone calls. 100%.
Get the voicemail.
That's right.
No, listen.
I'll just do it.
Yeah, the chief calls me down to his office quite a bit to, get on my butt a little bit. So I may not be at the phone all the time, but I will return your call. I'm not too busy for that.
Last one on the water. Do y'all man a station, or do y'all just monitor all stations on a VHF radio?
So each vessel is equipped with that. The officer may not be monitoring it, but our 24-hour dispatch has it in the office, and they're monitoring it 24 hours. So we got the Coast Guard communication there. We got our main line for DMR dispatch, and you also got VHF, which goes directly into us too. So any Mayday calls or anything like that, so we can hear it at the same time Coast Guard's hearing it and everything else.
Okay.
So if we're closer, we're going to go. Most of the time it's us that's going out there anyway. So Coast Guard does a great job, and they have a lot of good assets that we may not have that can help increase the response time. But if it's one of our good saturation weekends, we're going to be out there. We'll get to you.
Good deal.
I like it.
There is a dispatch number y'all got. You mentioned y'all are 24/7. There's a number they can call for dispatch. I know it's on the website, but that way they can, if somebody sees an emergency situation on the water, that's probably the best way they can get a
523-4134.
There you go.
523-4134.
There you go.
And I'm sure that's on the website.
Yes. Yeah, for sure. And I'll link to a lot of this stuff too. So
Sweet.
Gentlemen, thank you for your time. This was fun, and we enjoy them very much. So we appreciate y'all's time and everything y'all are doing for the Gulf of Mexico, the coast, everything.
We appreciate y'all support, and I appreciate y'all asking us to be here.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Thank y'all.
Thanks everybody for watching on the lives and the replays, man. Go download that Brownwater Banter app. It's free on the App Store and Google Play. Stay connected to all of our content. All of our stuff is right there inside of the app. And if you keep tuning in, we'll keep doing them.